Hello, friends, and welcome to episode number 21 of Nostalgia Talk. I'm James, and today is a very, very big day for Nostalgia Talk. But before I begin, as usual, I have a few things I want to say. First of all, I've started up a Facebook page for Nostalgia Talk. Link in the description, just Nostalgia Talk YouTube. I'll be showing, maybe doing tributes to old TV shows. Like, for example, yesterday was the 15th anniversary of that show, Hannah Montana. If you guys are my age, you'd remember that show. So I did a lot of stuff for that. Or maybe sometimes I'll do what's called a Friday song. So like Nostalgia Talk YouTube on Facebook, and you'll see our first ever Friday song this Friday, March the 26th, which also happens to be two things, actually. First of all, the birthday of my cousin Sam. Sam is turning 17. Sorry, Sam, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but happy birthday, Sam. And also tomorrow is Purple Day for Epilepsy. And the reason that I am bringing that up is because one of my best friends, Cassidy Megan, is the founder of Purple Day. So to show your support for epilepsy awareness, wear purple if you can. I know I'm definitely going to. Yeah. And now on with the show. Today on Nostalgia Talk, let's give a big welcome to the one and only Noel McNeil.
Hello.
How's it
Thanks
going?
for having me. I'm
you're
great. How are you?
I am well. If I was any better right now, there'd have to be two of me.
Cool. That's very good.
Which would probably be absolutely chaotic. Now, for those of you who don't know, Noel is a puppeteer and actually a good friend of some past guests that I've had on here. He has done various characters on Sesame Street, like a bunch of Snuffleupagus relatives, Mommy Snuffleupagus, a bunch of others, Gretel of Hansel and Gretel at one point. Various other characters in the background, such as, for the sake of argument, let's just say maybe a very snobbish grocery store clerk.
Yes, that was actually my first role. That was the first time I ever got to talk. And I had one line, and it was in the wide shot. And Grover's online for, you can find it on YouTube. And Grover's online for the groceries. He comes to me finally, and I'm supposed to say, "This register closed, next register over there, please, thank you." And I blew the line and just like dropped the puppet. So then everything up until that point was great. So what we did was called pickup. So we picked it up with a close-up. So I ended up getting a close-up of my character saying the line to Grover, and then we went on with the scene.
So basically it was just kind of dubbed, like they kept the original track just...
Oh, no. I mean, we did it live. I just like blew it. So everything up until that point was good. So editing wise, they kept everything up until Grover steps up to my character. Then as my character turns, that's when we cut to a close-up now of my character saying the line, and then you cut back to the wide and Grover reacts. So it's a way of saving rather than doing the whole thing all over again. If you can pick it up and like save it, that's what you do. It's quicker and cheaper because it's studio time, and you gotta have like gotta keep to a schedule.
Interesting. And in addition to Sesame Street, Noel was also Magellan the Dragon on Eureka's Castle. And speaking of Eureka's Castle, by the way, my last guest, Cheryl Blaylock, says hi.
Hello. Yes, I talk to her regularly on the Facebook. So yes, and Cheryl does great things. She does great gardening and nature programs for kids here in New York City.
Right. And another colleague of yours says hi, Lisa Buckley.
Yes, love Lisa Buckley. She has done great stuff internationally with puppets, going to other countries.
Yeah, that's what she told me yesterday. And in addition to Sesame Street and Eureka's Castle, Noel was also Kako. Did I say that right? Kako from Oobi?
Yeah, Kako. Yep, okay. That's right. Yep, the classic Nickelodeon show that's now on Paramount Plus, that great new streaming service. So if you go to Paramount Plus, you can see a lot of like the stuff I did for Nickelodeon, like Oobi and Blues Room. You can also see another show, Allegra's Window, that my friends Pam Arciero and Marty Robinson and Tim Lagasse all worked on as well. So
it's pronounced Tim Lagasse?
Yes.
I always
Lagasse.
I always read it as Lagasse.
No, it's Lagasse. Okay. He says Lagasse, and it's his name. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, sorry, Tim. Please don't give me a thumbs down for this already. And Noel also was Lionel on Between the Lions. And if you're my age, I mean, I used to watch Between the Lions a lot. one of my closest friends is Chris Surf. But another series that you might remember if you're my age is Bear in the Big Blue House, where he was the bear that lived in the Big Blue House.
Yes, it was great, and a lot of the kids have now all grown up. Several of them are now having children of their own and introducing Bear. So I'm quite proud of that, as well as feeling incredibly old.
Well, I have a feeling that this is the perfect show to make a lot of people feel really old. It's called Nostalgia Talk. So
Exactly. So I'm just like, it's just history. That's what it's like, nostalgia talk for, people who have lived way too long, doing way too much of this stuff, like me.
So how did you become interested in puppeteering?
When I was a kid, there was more puppet shows on. Like, and everything I say is like YouTubeable. You can just look it up on YouTube, which is like the video dresser drawer of the world. You just type it in, and somehow it's there.
Thank God for the internet.
Yes. So there were shows like Kukla, Fran, and Ollie. There was Sherry Lewis, who's had several shows during the decades that she was a puppeteer. There was Paul Winchell, who did Winchell Mahoney Time. He was a ventriloquist. And Paul Winchell went on to be the voice of Tigger, or the original Winnie the Pooh. And he also invented the artificial heart. So puppetry can save lives. And there was like also local shows, like here in New York, there was the Magic Garden and the Patchwork Family. And then I remember as a little kid, there was this special talking about this brand new show coming on tomorrow morning on PBS. It was called Sesame Street. And the show was hosted by two puppets. One had the head of a football named Ernie, and the other one that looked like a banana named Bert. And I saw that, and I'd never seen puppets like that before, because the puppets I'd seen were always like either hard carved puppets like Bill Baird puppets, or sock puppets like Lamb Chop. And so I saw this, and I immediately wanted to see the show, especially after seeing Big Bird, a puppet that could actually walk and talk on its own. And then when in high school, that was the height of the Muppet Show. And I thought, well, this guy Jim Henson's doing it, all these people are doing it, maybe I could do it too. So I researched, like, could I actually go to college and learn to be a puppeteer? And so I did it, researched the old-fashioned way. I went to the library, which is like Barnes and Noble, but it's free. And I found two colleges here on the East Coast. One that was in Connecticut, in Storrs, Connecticut, which to this day, you can get your 4-year master degree in puppetry. Or there was the other college here in Brooklyn, New York, called Pratt Institute. And so I did all the research, and I was going to present it to my mom. Now, my mom was a single mom, because my dad walked out on us when I was 18 months old. Oh. She was taking care of me. She took care of her mom, who lived with us, and her uncle, who lived with us. And she held down 2 jobs to send me to private school, because in Central Harlem, the choice at that time was the school where the kid got stabbed or the kid got shot. Ooh. So I was presenting this now to this single mom, saying, okay, I know what I want to be, a puppeteer. And I kind of braced myself. And she looked at me and said, okay, what do we have to do? Oh, okay, well, I've got this school and I've got this school. Okay, what do we have to do? Oh, well, this one needs this by this date. This one needs this by this date. Okay, what do we have to do? That's all she kept saying. She never belittled it. She never dismissed it. She never said have a backup, because she'd been a secretary for like 38 years. And she said, I've been typing the same letters for executives for 38 years. So don't get a job. You can always get a job. Get a career. And so that's what she encouraged me to do. And she said, and if for some reason tomorrow you want to be a lumberjack, well, figure out how you can do that. So I ended up going to Pratt, and I became a theater major, because it was a theater department at that time. And within the theater department was a puppetry course. And the puppetry course was taught by one of the designer and builders for the Muppets. His name was Kermit Love, and no, the frog was not named after him.
I was just about to say that.
No.
And for
he designed him.
And for
he designed and built Big Bird and Snuffy. So.
And also was Willie the Hot Dog Man for a few years on Sesame Street.
Yes. So I ended up going to Pratt, and then he offered me a job as his assistant on Sesame, being the wrangler, and so I took it, and the rest is history, or nostalgia.
That's a great way to put it. And then that quickly went into puppeteering. And as you said, your first performance was in a skit with Grover. One of my very favorite skits with Grover, actually.
Yes, and Grover, of course, back then was performed by Frank Oz. I'm one of the few of Sesame Street who actually worked with Frank Oz and knew and worked with Jim Henson. So I got to be Jim's right hand for like Ernie a couple of times, and also was in scenes with Kermit when he was doing Kermit the Frog. So I'm very, very lucky, and don't take it lightly that I got to know and work with Jim.
It's amazing. I've got a photo in the actual edit. Noel, I know that you can't see it, but it'll be in the edit. But a photo that Cheryl Blaylock sent me of you assisting Jim in a segment called "The King Who Ate Only Chicken" that I talked to Cheryl.
Okay, first of all, I don't remember that, but thank God other people's memories, and I'd love to see that photo. I'm going to actually ask Cheryl for that photo because I have a photo of me helping Frank, and I have a photo of me helping me with Richard Hunt.
Oh,
but I don't
nice.
have one with Jim. Oh, I was also one with Jerry Nelson assisting him, but I don't have one with Jim. So I've definitely got to contact Cheryl.
It'll be in the edit of this video. So
Fantastic.
what was Jim Henson like? I've heard so many great stories about him. What did you think of him?
He was exactly as you wanted him to be. He was like, oh, was he so nice? Oh, was he so creative? Was he so sweet? Yes, yes, he was. He was basically the boss you wanted to please. You wanted to get that smile from Jim. You wanted to get that little chuckle from Jim. He would more early on, before he became too busy, he would often like walk through the shop, the Henson workshop, the creature shop. And the people there are artists. They're true artists. They are amazing in the stuff that they can create. And you walk by their desk, and he would like see something, he'd like, and he would like pick it up and kind of like play with it and maybe rearrange the eyes and all that. And was like, and just like, and so from what I was told, often when he was available, before his schedule became busy, Jim would go by the shop at night, like walking through before going home, and he would see what people were working on, and then he would kind of like play around with it while they weren't there and rearrange it. So when they came back the next morning, they suddenly saw this character had like a different kind of expression or a different like hairstyle, and they realized it was Jim. So what I was told is they began to deliberately leave things out just to see what he would do and kind of speed the process of approval along.
Wow. So
yeah, he was great. He was wonderful.
Yeah, Jim and Frank are like my idols, basically, because I do a lot of film stuff as well. Obviously by this show, but I'm a film student, and I look at Frank Oz's films for inspiration. Can you talk a little bit about Frank Oz? Any memories you have of him?
Frank is like one of the funniest men I know. He can also be one of the most scathingly sarcastic men I know. But he's great. He's very giving. He's very patient. But when you right hand for him, like before, like for instance, Cookie Monster, right handing is when you just put your right hand into the right hand of the puppet, and then the main puppeteer puts his right hand into the character's head, and his left hand into the character's left hand. And Frank would slap his left hand over the right hand and say, "Me like to be on top." And so this way the right hand wouldn't do too much and distract, because that's often a danger with the right hand. But he's very funny, especially some of the best like moments with Frank was just watching him with the kids and just watching him with Grover talk to a child, which is just priceless. Because what they do is they'll have a kid come in, and then they'll have like, certain bullet points, like, we want, like, there's a list, like we want the kid to talk about circles or about happiness or the alphabet or the number 3. And so basically the kid comes in, the kid sits down on the stool that's raised up, and Frank is like sitting next to them on the floor, holding up Grover. And then they just start talking. And as they're talking, they're rolling the entire time. And as they're talking and the kid's warming up, that's when Frank will say, it's like, "Could you show me 3? And hold up 3 fingers." And just like, and then the kid will do that. And then they'll talk some more, and then they'll just like, keep talking, and then eventually get all the bullet points. And that's how you do it with a kid. You just don't say, "Okay, we're going to talk about the alphabet, go." It's like you want to warm them up and just get into it. And then some of the stuff is just fine. Some of the stuff that they didn't even think about sometimes comes through, and it's great.
So you assisted Jim with Ernie quite a lot, and as you were saying, sometimes you would assist Frank with Cookie Monster. Jim and Frank were really good at ad lib. Do you have any stories of any times where you just cracked up watching them while you were performing with them?
Oh yeah, well, like there was one time when I came in to pick up something from the studio, and it was insert days. So there was like the street days where they do the street story,
Right.
but then there would be a certain week for like 4 or 5 days when it would just be the insert. So it would be Ernie and Bert stuff, or Kermit and Grover, or Grover and Fat Blue in the restaurant, and it would just be all that stuff. So I came in one day to pick up something, and I saw they were wrapping up this bit where Ernie and Bert are in their apartment, they're in bed, and it's at night, and they're doing the bit, and they, the bit's done. But then Jim and Frank just kept going. They just kept talking. And, Bert even comments on the fact that Ernie, if the bit's over, you can stop talking. Like, yeah, Bert, what is it? It just like keeps going. It's like you just want a close up. That's all. That's why you keep talking. Just try and get a close up. It's like, no, you get more close. No, Frank, no, John likes you better. And they just kept going, arguing back and forth about who gets more lines, who gets the close ups, who gets more fan mail. And they just kept going. My wife, Susan Elia McNeil, author of the Maggie Hope Mystery, is available on Amazon.com.
Link in the description.
Yes, The Hollywood Spy, coming out July 6th. She was she attended Wellesley, and there was a summer course that she attended at MIT. And at that particular summer, she walked by the auditorium with her friend, and she looked inside, and there was Jim and Frank sitting on stage, and it was the Puppeteers of America conference, and they were doing a presentation at MIT, and they pulled out Kermit and Cookie Monster on stage. And I think, again, you can watch this on YouTube because now it's available on YouTube. And Cookie Monster starts berating Kermit for the fact that he left Sesame Street to be a big time star and got the Muppet Show. Don't need us anymore. Don't have time for alphabet. And it just kept going on and on. And Kermit's like, oh, so they had a great friendship that just translated into their characters. So the chemistry that Kermit and Miss Piggy had, or Kermit and Fozzie had, or Ernie and Bert had, that was based on the friendship and affection Jim and Frank had for each other.
That's amazing. So you've been with Sesame Street for, I'm sorry if this makes you feel old, almost 40 years.
Yeah.
I deserve that. You've been with Sesame Street for quite a while. So do you have any celebrity stories from Sesame Street, like not just the show, but maybe specials, home videos, any celebrity who worked on a Sesame Street production that you'd like to share?
One of the nicest celebrities to this day was when we had John Candy, who was the comedian from SCTV.
Yep.
And he's also in the movie Follow That Bird. And
oh yeah.
He plays the cop at the end who arrests the Sleaze brothers. And he told us he was so disappointed because he was so excited to be in a Sesame movie, but then he realized his scene had none of the Muppets, and he was so disappointed he didn't get to meet any of the Muppets. So he had him on, and he played his character back then. SCTV was on, and he had a character that was one of the Schmengi brothers, these two guys who would play the clarinet and do polkas. You can, again, go to YouTube. His partner in that was Eugene Levy. And in interviews I've seen of Eugene Levy, he's in his office with all these pictures of like things that he's done. And right behind him is this picture of him and John Candy as their SCTV characters. So you could just see the affection that they had for each other. And it's true because John Candy was like the nicest guy. And he did his bit with Oscar, and he did this bit for Put Down the Ducky, because we had cameos of celebrities doing their little bit for Put Down the Ducky. And that was it. His bit was done for the show, and then we broke for lunch, and it was myself and Pam and Marty Robinson and Carol and Deborah Spinney, and we said goodbye. It's just like, thank you so much for coming. And he asked like, it's like, where were you guys going? It's like, well, we're going to lunch. It's like, he was like, oh, where? And we're like, oh, this is an Italian restaurant across the street. He's like, oh, he's like, could I come? And I'm like, sure. Okay.
It sounds like
It's
me
like,
whenever any of my family members or my friends are like, oh, we're going to go shopping downtown. I'm like, oh, can I come? I love going to downtown Halifax.
it's like, come on. Yeah. So we took him across the street to the Italian restaurant there, and he ended up like paying for us. We didn't ask him to, but he ended
Oh
up
my
treating us to
God.
lunch and told these great stories of SCTV. And then we walked back over because we had to do the afternoon show, and his car was there to pick him up. And he like hugged Pam, he hugged Marty, he hugged Debbie, he hugged Carol. And then he came over and then he hugged me. And I thought, why are you hugging me? It's like, I'm not any of these stars, but that's how nice he was. He didn't care. He was just like a nice guy, just treated everybody with the same respect. And I was back when I was still like wrangling. So it's like, I just love the fact that he was such a sweet guy. And so he's like one of the nicest celebrities we had on Sesame Street. For specials, I think one of the nicest moments I remember was Richard Hunt, who was a performer on Sesame Street. And we had like for the 25th anniversary, it was this big scene in the middle of the street with all these adults and all these kids, like all these kids. And whenever a kid would come in to visit the set, Richard, if he was free, would go to the Muppet box and just take a Muppet and just start entertaining the kid. So in between like this huge crowd with all these kids, they had to like readjust something. So Richard just grabbed a puppet or used his puppet, I think it was Forgetful Joe, and just started entertaining the kids. And it was like one of the sweetest things, just to see these kids interacting with the puppet. And that's what's great about having kids come and visit Sesame, or even when we had kids visit Bear, because it's like a little reminder, like, oh yeah, this is why we're doing it. It's like there's a schedule, there's a budget, but this is the reason why we're here wiggling dolls.
One of my very favorite Sesame Street things from when I was a kid, you were credited in. It was Elmo's Peter and the Wolf with the Boston Pops Orchestra. Did you get to meet the Boston Pops Orchestra?
No, they went to Boston to shoot the Boston Pop Orchestra stuff.
Oh,
And here
wow.
in New York is when they did all the fantasy stuff with the Peter and the Wolf. So I was the wolf, but we were all that stuff was here in New York. So I did not get to go to Boston and meet the Boston Pops. However, there was a trip I got to go on. It was when Sesame was invited to be on Oprah Winfrey's show in Chicago. So
Oh,
we all got flown to Chicago, which was nice. And I got to, and I was right-handing for Carmen Osbach, who does Rosita. So got flown out for that. So I do get to go on some of these things. And like 2 years ago for the 50th anniversary, there was this whole road trip, Big Bird's road trip across the United States to 10 different cities. And I did 7 of the cities as Big Bird. Big Bird now is performed by Matt Vogel, but he asked me if I could fill in, and then he dubbed his voice in, and I actually got to direct one of them.
oh,
So I do
cool.
get to go on trips.
Mm. And you recently just directed, I saw on Instagram that you directed the latest Sesame Street video, Wheels on the Fire Truck, and you got to play the fire truck.
Yes, and the fire truck is actually about like, the size of a small dog. In fact, I was trying to look for a reference of how it was used before. And so if you go to like YouTube Elmo fire truck, you'll see like it was part of Elmo's world.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
right.
it's this little fire truck that's was done like over 20 years ago. So this is the first time this fire truck has been used in over 20 years.
Oh, my God.
And so in order to make this work, I wanted the fire truck to be truck size. So what we did was we did Elmo, Gabrielle, and Grover for one pass, and they step over to make room for the fire truck. And then once they're done, that's when we did a second pass with the fire truck. So that in editing, they're able to like have the fire truck come in and be bigger, truck size in relationship to the other characters. So
That's amazing. Because
and I've got
when I saw that, I went back and watched the Elmo's World one, and I didn't really think about size at the time when I went back and rewatched it. But now looking back, whoa.
Yeah, so it's just like it should be fire truck, should be the size of an actual truck and not the size of a dachshund. So in order to make this work, so I actually did it, and that was the day when we did three. So there's two more I directed that they'll be coming out soon, and I won't say what they are. I'll let you all be surprised. But it was fun being a director, and also there's one bit where because of COVID restrictions, there was only so many people that could be in the studio at the same time. And so there's a bit with same three characters, Grover, Gabrielle, and Elmo, but then there are these other three characters, and I have to be all the other three characters.
Ooh.
And so we had to shoot this and then switch characters and now shoot this. And then in editing, they put all the characters together in post because there's one bit where they come in one at a time, but then when they have to be all in at the end, that's when we did separate passes. And then in editing, they put all of us in it. So it looks seamless.
And that's one that's not out yet?
Not out yet. There's two more, and that's one of the two that's not out yet. So
you'll have to send me the link.
Sure. It's like there'll be this should be coming out soon. It's like it supports the YouTube channel of
Right.
Sesame.
Right. So another one of my very favorite Sesame Street specials, which had very few celebrities, but I still loved, and have a VHS tape of it, is Don't Eat the Pictures. And you made a cameo in that. I don't know.
We do a lot of cameos on Sesame. There's like people like find me sitting in the background of the arbor reading a newspaper, and Barkley goes by, or I'm watching Munford do something. I even have a cameo in Follow That Bird.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was for Follow That Bird. It was funny because when it was time for that, it's at the end when Big Bird comes home, and they're trying to tell the social worker, Miss Finch, that he belongs here because we've got all kinds of people, like all kinds of people that make up a family, people, humans, monsters, cows, chickens, but they didn't hire enough extras that day. So it turned out that they had to have us, the crew, be part of it. So I'm standing there. My mom, who's visiting, happened to be one of the extras. Debbie Spinney is an extra. And then people from the shop, people from the camera crew, people from upstairs. It's like people from the Muppet Workshop were all, so it's really funny how at the end of the movie, like everybody pretty much who worked on the movie got to be in this final shot for Sesame Street.
Either holding up a puppet or not, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Just stand there, just stand there. And so with Don't Eat the Pictures, got to like walk through at the end. Don't Eat the Pictures is a special where the Sesame Street characters get locked into the Metropolitan Museum of Art overnight. And then in a side story, Big Bird and Snuffy are trying to help the ghost of this Egyptian prince solve this riddle so that he can join his parents in the afterlife, which is very dark if you really think about it.
I agree.
I mean, it's like all fantasy and sweet and all that, but then when you really start to think about it, it's like, wow, they're helping a dead kid and the kid's dead cat try to get to the afterlife so he can be reunited with his parents. Wow.
Well, I don't know if you saw the show that I did with Cheryl Blaylock, but I told her that sometime after Don't Eat the Pictures, that kid passed away in real life.
Really? Oh,
he died in a car accident.
Oh, that's really sad to hear.
That just makes it even more darker, really.
Yeah, it does. It's just like.
So, what was it like to do that project at the Metropolitan Museum of Art?
The majority of it had to be shot at night because the Sesame characters get locked in at night. So we had to go in at night. And it gets a little creepy at night, something that big with all that artwork and like the rooms and the shadows. So it's a little creepy, but it was amazing too because we also had sort of like the run of the place to a certain extent. There's certain parts we just couldn't go into, but we could walk around and actually see the stuff close up because there are certain scenes we had to shoot in the daytime. And of course, there are people all around, so they had to close off parts of the museum just so that we could shoot. But at night, there's nobody around, so it was very like magical being in something that big at night. The Metropolitan Museum is a gorgeous museum, and they to this day they still sell the video Don't Eat the Pictures in their gift shop.
Oh my God! Next time I'm in New York, I'll have to check that out.
Yes, you can.
I wanted to go there so bad.
Yeah, it's reopened again, And so you have to make, I think you make reservation online maybe, but it's reopened again. So you can go in, and it's an amazing place. It's gorgeous. I mean, you could just go back like more than once because it's so big. You really can't do it justice in a day.
Mm. Yeah, I'm in Nova Scotia, so if I go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, I won't have to isolate. But coming back, on the other hand, I would.
Yeah, yeah,
So
exactly. So wait a bit. It's not
yeah,
going anywhere. It's been around for over 100 years. You're good.
yeah. I look forward to seeing it someday.
Right. Or
So
just order the DVD and you can just see it now.
well, as I said, I have a VHS copy of it, and I have a VCR TV to play it on.
Oh, well, there you go.
hmm Looks like I know what I'm watching tonight. So you got to perform a lot of, as I said in the intro, many Snuffleupagus relatives, and especially Mommy Snuffleupagus, and that kind of goes into an episode of Sesame Street that, and I'm sure you probably saw this coming, one that never aired but is well known for that, and it was
Oh,
where
yes.
Snuffy's parents get a divorce. Can you talk a little bit about that episode if you can? You don't have to,
Oh,
but
yeah. Oh, no, I can. I actually have a copy of it that I'll never show with anybody. But yes, it happened right after Sesame Street was able very successfully and beautifully handle the death of Will Lee, who was the actor who played Mr. Hooper. And so explaining death to kids. So then after that, Sesame thought, okay, what else could we do? That was really like the first, Mr. Hooper's death was really the first like socially conscious um, thing they tackled. Um, so they thought, well, what else could we do? What delicate, difficult subject for a kid to handle could we do? And they thought divorce. And so they came up with this storyline where Snuffy's parents um, tell Snuffy and his sister Alice they're getting a divorce. And so I got to play Snuffy's mom. And I also got to play Snuffy's dad in that same scene.
Mhm.
And we shot it, and they were going to air it because they were quite proud of it. But research said, no, we really should test this. We really should test it to see the reaction. So they had two test groups of kids, one in New York and then somewhere in New Jersey was the second group. And they showed that segment, and the results came back that one, divorce is your fault. Two, your parents don't love you anymore. That's why one has to leave. It's like it pretty much somehow reinforced everything they wanted to dispel. And so they just shelved it, like never saw it. And the thing is, they had advertised it saying, oh yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And then they couldn't air it. So what did they do? They just put the spin on it, saying, we did it, we tested it, it didn't work. And so we're going to go back and try it again. And so they ended up right after that, at some point, there was a song with a bird, and the bird is in this little bird is in the tree, and there's one nest where he lives with his mommy bird, but then there's another nest in the same tree where he goes and he can live with his daddy bird. So that was like what they did for divorce at that
Is,
point,
is that the
up until that point.
is that the one that goes, Mom's tree is over there, right there is Daddy's
Yeah,
tree?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so
yeah.
it's like yeah, so that's the way of like handling divorce.
Mm. Well, I don't know if this is common knowledge or not, but that and two other segments were the very last segments on Sesame Street that Jim Henson ever performed in that were shot.
Ah, I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it
like
was.
Jim was, yeah, Jim became very busy. So when he could come to Sesame, it was like it was a treat because he was so busy with so many projects going on. So
Mm. Yeah, that day he shot that one. He shot Ernie singing "Don't Throw That Trash on the Ground." I think it was called. I can't find it anywhere. And he also did one of my very favorite Sesame Street songs. Actually, Jim as Ernie sang my very favorite Sesame Street song, which is "I Don't Want to Live on the Moon." This one's with Kermit. It's "I Wonder About the World Above Up There."
oh,
Do you
see,
know that
there you
one?
go. No, I don't actually. I know about the bit where there's one bit where we managed to have all of Jim's Sesame characters in one bit. So it's Kermit and Guy Smiley and Ernie all in the same bit. And it's Ernie singing Do the Duck,
Do
the
the
rubber
Rubber
duck.
Duck? Yes.
Yes. And it's the one and only time where all of Jim's characters are in the same bit at the same time. And of course, Jim's doing Ernie. And I got
hmm
for that one, I got to be Oscar and lip synced what Carol had recorded.
Mm. Yeah, I remember that song. And do the duck rub? It's like reggae, basically.
Yes, it is. With this
Writ-
hugely exaggerated bathtub for everybody to be in.
That's looking back, that is kind of bizarre now that I think about it, but it is still a
Yeah.
very catchy song.
Oh yeah, it is.
Hmm.
It works.
So, do you have a favorite Snuffleupagus character that you performed?
It's like I managed to be every snuffle up a relative of his mom, his dad, his uncle, his grandmother, his then about his mailman. Then I got to be his personal trainer, which was Arnold Snuffleupagus, which again is on YouTube. So that was fun, just like doing that and just like helping Snuffy like exercise. Like I had to do this bad accent, like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But yeah, I liked doing Arnold.
But unfortunately, Arnold Schnuffleupagus never came back.
No, he did not come back.
I couldn't resist. So moving on from Sesame Street and the Muppets, when I announced this episode, it was with Cheryl Blaylock, and she was very excited. She was like, "He's my Magellan!" And just when I heard from you for the first time about doing the show, I was getting preparations made for the Cheryl Blaylock show, and one of those preparations was watch Eureka's Castle. So I started watching that, and I love it.
Thank you. Eureka's Castle came out in 1989. We did 2 seasons. Um, one in New York, and then half of season 2 was done in New York, and the other half of season 2 was done in the brand new Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, nice.
So we got to go to Orlando, be in Orlando, Florida for like 3.5 months and live down there. And at that time, there was like a tour so that the tour groups would be walking by above in this glass tube and look down and see us like recording the show. So it doesn't exist anymore, but it was fun doing
Aw.
that.
Hmm. How did you get the role of Magellan? Was it Jim Krupa who cast you?
Yeah, Jim Krupa and his company, Three Design Studio, Matt Stoddard and John Orberg were his partners. And we were actually doing a movie called Little Monsters with Howie Mandel and a very young Fred Savage
Oh,
in
wow.
Wilmington, North Carolina. And then they got this email from Nickelodeon saying that this project was a go and to go ahead and make the puppets. And so they asked me, it's like, no, would you be interested in being this character? It's kind of like Big Bird. They knew that I had done like Big Bird for like photo shoots and for the parade. And there was a bit where Big Bird and his grandmother are together, and I got to be Big Bird's grandmother, lip syncing to what Carol had already recorded. So they asked, like, would I want to be the dragon? It's like, sure. So we actually did a little test for it, and the reaction from kids was they loved it. It was Magellan, Batley, which was Jim, and then Cheryl was Eureka, and the kids loved it. So it got greenlit, and so we did the first season in 1989 here in New York. And the second season, like I said, was in New York and then in Orlando, Florida. So it's one of the few times I didn't have to audition. They just gave me the part, which was really cool. And I loved Magellan. Magellan was my first major starring role in a network TV.
Lucky. That's amazing. Yeah, I'm loving what I've seen so far of Eureka's Castle. It's very cute.
Oh yeah, it is.
And I will say that with Batley, I was kind of expecting Batley to have a more voice like that because he was a bat,
No,
but I didn't
right.
expect him to sound like a kid.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. It was like Magellan's like a baby dragon, almost like a toddler, and then Batley is a couple of years older than Magellan, as are the Mo twins, but they're all kid characters. The only adult character is really Mr. Knack, the merchant that was played by Brian Meal.
Right.
Who had his card. And then Eureka is like sort of like a teenage girl. So she's like the next oldest after that. But yeah, all the other characters are like kid characters. And Batley was actually modeled after executive at the time at Nickelodeon who approved the project. His name was Jeff Darby, and Jeff had these same glasses and like short haircut. And so they modeled Batley after him, and Jeff loved the compliment. So that's one way to get a green light on your show.
Yeah, just model it after whoever's working on it.
Yeah.
Cheryl told me that one of her favorite moments from Eureka's Castle was when Luther Vandross, I hope I'm saying that right, Vandross
Yeah.
came on. Did you get to meet him?
Oh yeah, that was down in Florida. That's when we did three specials. One was the Christmas special, and then one was with Luther Vandross. And he was lovely. He was a lovely man. He loved being there. He couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been sweeter. He was great. And of course the man could sing. He played the Grand High Wizard, I think, and he comes at the end of the special.
Mm. That was one of the episodes I watched to get ready for this and the one with Cheryl, because I remember the song "Don't Touch That Box or Eureka's Gonna Yell at You," something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, something like that. I don't remember. It's like I have no idea. That's how old I am, kids. I'm sorry, but I'm sure it was lovely.
So another project that you and a bunch of other people I know, such as Cheryl and Stephanie DeBruzzo and Tim Lagasse, thank God I said it right that time, and Tyler Bunch, you all did Oobi. And for that one, as I said on the last show, Oobi was very different than like Sesame Street puppeteering because you have a piece of cloth on your hand. For Oobi, you're actually using your human skin. Did you find that more of a challenge?
It was very unusual because it was just like our hands, and then you put these eyes on, which were taxidermy eyes on a wire that slipped on our finger like a ring. And so, yeah, it was very odd that like this is the puppet. I mean, certainly in terms of production costs, like, well, you've cut down on that, so it's just our hands. But then it was odd because we had to get manicures, so our hands were clean, and had to get, like, for me and Tyler and Tim, we had to get our hands and arms waxed of any hair. So that was an interesting experience.
I guess so.
Right. And of course, if you got one arm that's waxed, like you got to have the other one. Otherwise, it just looks weird to have one arm that's waxed and the other one that's still hairy as a dog. And so did that. And then there was a time Cheryl was on, and she played a character who's actually a foot.
Right, Frida.
And Frida. And then I'm her friend who's also a foot. So for that one, I had to get a pedicure for my feet. But
Cheryl
yeah,
didn't tell me about the
yeah.
pedicure.
Oh yeah, yeah. You had to get a pedicure because you have to have your feet look good because that's the character. And we had to, like, that was the one of the times when usually when you puppeteer, especially for a show like Oobi, we would just stand up and all the sets are raised up. For that one, the outdoor set, the ground level was down lower so that Cheryl and I could lay down and then just put our feet up into the shot. And so that's when like Tim and the others have to sit on the floor and actually put their arms up in the air.
Wow. Yikes. That would be quite an experience.
It was. It
Mm.
was great. The best episode, my favorite episode, was when we did the musical. And if you remember the show, the characters only spoke in one or two words at a time. They never spoke in complete sentences. So when they said, "Oh, we're going to do a musical," we were like, "How are these characters going to do a musical?" But it worked. It was a musical of Red Riding Hood, and it was so fun and so silly, and it totally worked.
Mm. I don't think Canada ever had access to Noggin, but I remember I was introduced to Oobi as I think a 6 or 7-year-old going to the Noggin website, and I do remember going into Oobi and seeing Tim was doing Oobi, right?
Yeah, Tim was Oobi, I was Kako with the little red hat. Stephanie was Uma,
Right.
Oobi's sister, and then Tyler Bunch was Grandpoo, the grandfather.
Mm. And I still remember Oobi coming up, game, 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 kind of like it's kind of like that. To me, that was like his way of saying, let's play a game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oobi started out as little interstitials, little in between things, in between shows, and then it caught on so well. That's when it got greenlit to be a full series for Nickelodeon. And again, it's all the episodes are now available for streaming on Paramount Plus. Sound like an infomercial for Paramount Plus, but it's true. It's all there. So if you want to relive those days of watching bare hands talk to each other and figure out how they went to the bathroom, go to Paramount Plus and type in Oobi.
So another show from my childhood that I absolutely loved, and ever since I got Chris Surf to come on here, I've kind of just been rewatching it, and I just have been loving it. Between the Lions, where you played Lionel, a role that you actually took over from Anthony Asbury.
Yeah.
How did you get the role of Lionel?
Oh, I auditioned for that.
Mhm.
I It was interesting. Actually, initially I had auditioned way back when Between the Lines was starting. I auditioned for the part of Theo, the dad,
Oh wow.
and they liked it. They liked what I did. But that was also when we were still doing Bear, and so with Bear being so popular and doing appearances, I told them it wouldn't be fair to you to try and juggle your schedule around like appearances and the shooting schedule. So I passed, and then they offered it to Peter Lentz, who also worked on Bear.
Yeah, Peter
But
and
Tunnel
I are
didn't,
very close.
yeah, but Tunnel didn't make as many appearances as Bear did. But then I ended up being on Between the Lines as Lionel, Theo's son. And I took over for Anthony, who left. So I'm on the last 2 seasons, and those last 2 seasons we did in Wilmington. No, we did it in Arkansas. No, where was it? Where did we do it? Arkansas? Yeah, we did. No, Mississippi. God, we did it
Oh
in
wow.
Mississippi. Yes, and because at that point, Between the Lines needed additional funding, and so Mississippi Public Television, located in Jackson, Mississippi, they said, we'll provide the rest of the funding, but you got to do it here in Jackson,
Oh
because
wow.
at that time Mississippi had the lowest literacy rate in the country among adults, and the literacy rate was actually improving from adults watching Between the Lines, and so
Wow.
that's why they sponsored the last 2 seasons. So we shot the last 2 seasons in Jackson, Mississippi.
Nice. So I did notice, I think by the time you had taken over Lionel, I was still watching Between the Lines here and there, but I was a little bit older at the time. Of course, now I just turned 22 about 10 days ago, and I'm still watching it just for nostalgic purposes. It had been years since I'd watched Between the Lines, and then when I booked Chris Surf, I've told this story before on the show, but basically I went back, turned on an episode, and the theme song plays and everything's just kind of coming back to me, and then it gets into that really upbeat
Yeah,
tempo where it's like between the lines, between
yeah,
the covers of,
yeah, very jazzy. It's very jazzy theme.
and I had this big ugly cry. I am so happy that nobody else in my house saw that.
Tapping into stuff that hasn't been tapped into for eons, and suddenly there it is.
And then I had a class to go to. I do my classes from home, and I logged into Microsoft Teams, and one of my friends logs in who listens to the podcast, and I said, "Hey, do you remember the show Between the Lions?" And he said, "Yes, I do." And I said, "The co-creator of that show is coming to Nostalgia Talk next week." And he's like, "Oh my God!" So from what I saw of your time of doing Lionel on Between the Lines, I noticed a little bit of a wardrobe change with Lionel. Was that your idea?
Yeah.
Was it Kathy Mullen's idea?
No, it was their idea. It was like Chris's idea. They decided that with Lionel, that he's kind of like, we'll give him a different outfit, and so he has a baseball cap, and he has a rugby a t-shirt. He went from a rugby shirt to having a t-shirt that has the number 42 on it. And the significance of that is number 42 was one, Jackie Robinson's number, who
Oh,
was the
wow.
first African-American baseball player in the major league. And two, number 42 is a reference to Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and answering the question, like, what is the meaning of life? And the answer is the number 42. So it's a nice book reference as well.
That
And since they
sounds
all
like
live in a
something
library.
that totally sounds like something Chris Surf would have put in there then.
Yes, exactly. So that's why Lionel gets to wear the number 42 for the last 2 seasons.
Mm. To get ready for this, I was watching an episode that featured Lionel prominently. It was back when Anthony was doing Lionel, no offense. But
That's
it
right.
was one that I remember very well from when I was a kid. It was when he was trying to grow a mane like Theo's.
Oh, right. Yes. It's like
Yeah.
the Lions had a really nice, like, very nuclear family relationship. So there was the mom, there was the dad, there was the brother, there was the sister. So it was nice. And the fact that we all knew each other and had chemistry with each other. So it was me, it was Peter, it was Jen Barnhart, who was Cleo, and then, of course, Pam, who was Arciero, who was Leona. And so we had all known each other for years. So I just like fit in right away in terms of like chemistry. And also when you know people for a while, you kind of know each other's timing. and how easy it is to just kind of like go with the theme, maybe ad lib something.
Nice. Similar to the case of Jim and Frank.
Yes, exactly. We're a very small, tight knit little group of puppeteers
But
here on the East Coast and the West Coast.
but an amazing group, I will say.
Thank you. Still works.
So you also played a character named Leon McNeil on The Puzzle Place, and I'm noticing I never actually sat down and watched an episode of The Puzzle Place, but I know what it is. But basically, the funny thing about that is the character name. It's basically your first name, but the letters are all changed. Was that your idea? Was that the writer's idea? Did they want to cast you in because of that?
No, I auditioned for Leon, and then I got the phone call from one of the executive producers, the same people who produced Reading Rainbow.
Wow.
They also co-produced Between the Lions with KCT Los Angeles. And so she called me and said, "No, we would love you to be Leon." I was like, "Well, thank you." And then I said to her, "But it seems almost like destiny, because you know what Leon backwards spells." And there was this pause, and then all of a sudden I heard this gasp, and she said, "Oh my God." So she had no idea until I pointed it out.
So is that when Leon was given the last name McNeil?
Well, we did a read through here in New York before we went out to Los Angeles, because it was a co-production with KCT Los Angeles. They said, "Please come out here and use our studios." So we got to live out in Los Angeles for season 1 for like 6 months. And so we had a read through here in New York of the first couple of scripts. And Leon mentions his last name, and it was like something completely different. Then we get to Los Angeles, and eventually when that script comes up and we're reading through it on set, I noticed that Leon suddenly had the last name McNeil. And they did that on purpose, just it's like they said it seemed only fitting since it's your name spelled backwards. And so I told my mom, like, for many years, like, this is the grandchild you've always wanted. So
That's funny. So now let's move on into one of the biggest projects that you're known for. I saved the best for almost last, actually. But anyway, I saved the best, thing that you're known for close to the end. How did you get the role of Bear?
I auditioned for Bear. I was called by the Jim Henson Company saying, actually, it was something else. It was another project that I was auditioned for that morning. And then I was like, okay. And then I came home, and then I got a phone call saying, "No, there's another character for another project. We want you to come back and audition for that." And I was like, okay. So they faxed me. Yes, that's how old the story is. They faxed me the sides, the lines, and a drawing of this character. And it was this bear with all these little characters around him, and like the moon that had a face and back of him. I was like, okay, this looks cute. And so I got in a cab and went and looked at the lines in the cab, and I got out. And the executive for Henson at that time, Peter Van Roden, came up to me and said, "Use your own voice." I was like, "What?" It's like, "Use your own voice." Because they wanted it not to be like a Barney character. There was already, that big purple dinosaur that had a funny voice. So they wanted Bear to have just a fairly normal voice, just to see if that would work. I was like, okay. And during the audition, I tried to slip in like a funnier voice. And no, keep doing your own voice. It's like, okay. So at that time, before I became a dad, I called it my Uncle Noel mode, when I would just have a sort of a gentle tone and sort of this attitude of like, okay, what do you want to do? That sounds good to me. And the other thing was with the script, it said that the character had to like sniff the viewer at home. And so I thought, okay, that sounds fun. Then I realized, no, it's almost 5 o'clock. It's a Friday. You're the last one that came in. They obviously just want to check all their bases, and they've already picked out who they want. So it's just a courtesy call. So I just said, you know what, I'm just going to have fun. So when it came time for Bear to sniff the camera, that's when I just jammed the nose all the way into the lens and pulled it out again. And I would like run around and I would hold things up. And I just had a great time thinking like, this is great. It was fun. Thanks so much. Good luck with your little project. And then the weekend came and went. And then that Monday, just before 6 o'clock, I got a call from Henson. And they said, "We want you to be Bear." And I was gobsmacked. I said, "What?" It's like, "Yes, we want you to be Bear." So that's how it happened.
I used to love Bear in the Big Blue House when I was a kid, and I told so many of my friends, I'm talking to Bear on Nostalgia Talk, and they were like, oh my God, that is my childhood. Actually, I smell something right now. Do you smell that too? Well, I mean, you're in New York, I'm in Halifax, but that smells like my listeners. They have that let's get nostalgic and feel really, really old smell.
Yeah, being in New York, we have many, many smells that I won't be describing to you right now. But
Yeah, thank God.
yes, exactly.
Well, here's a question that'll probably my apologies goes out to my first friend Rachel. I know I always do this intentionally, but sorry, friends, if this makes you feel old. Cough, cough, Rachel. Noel, do you have any favorite Bear songs?
Yeah, I mean, Peter Lurie was pretty much the master of kids' theme songs, and he wrote the original theme to the Magic School Bus, the original Magic School Bus, which is
Nice.
one of the best theme songs. And so he wrote the theme song, and then he wrote pretty much almost all the songs for Bear. But of course, his most memorable is the Goodbye song, which is like so sweet and so sad at the same time.
Right.
But yeah, there's like I like the song that "Love is the Most Amazing Thing." There's the Rhythm of Life, which is very like Jacques Brel kind of rhythm to it. Another song that I love is called "Come On In," which I actually co-wrote with Peter. I wrote the lyrics,
Nice.
and Peter came up with the melody. So that's one of my favorite songs.
Awesome. My classmate Drew. I remember I was in. We were on break from class, and I had heard from you. This was about 2 years ago. I got a message from you about something that I think it was my school documentary actually, because I remember messaging you about
Oh
my
yeah, that's
school.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
which I got an 82 on, by the way. I passed. And for anyone wondering, I can't post this documentary to YouTube. It is owned by my school. I mean, and there's footage in it from Bear in the Big Blue House, Muppets, Sesame Street, Fraggle Rock. So, and since the footage is not mine, I can't post it. But if I know you, I'll show it to you. I do still have it in my possession. But
Wink, wink. Yeah.
but I do remember my friends were there, and I said, "Oh, I just heard from Bear in the Big Blue House," and I told them I also have spoken with Peter Linz, who does Tutter, and Tyler Bunch, who plays Trilo, and my classmate Drew. She told me a couple of little Bear in the Big Blue House stories, and I got permission to do this. I texted her, "Are you okay with me telling Noel McNeil this?" Because she knows I told Peter. That's a little
Right.
different. It wasn't on YouTube,
Yeah.
so this time people are actually going to hear this, but. Drew told me that her dad used to refer to Trilo as Rainbow Butt Monkey.
Sounds about right. Yep.
She also, yeah, pretty much. She also has another little memory. She was getting I think it was a shot, like a needle shot, and she, to comfort her, she had a little doll of, I think it was Tutter, and she remembered the song. Just say ow, say it now. Just say
Yeah.
ow, and it's over.
Yeah, exactly. Which we'll all be singing very soon. I actually got my first shot of the Moderna vaccine
Oh,
yesterday, so it actually did go through my head. Just like
wow. How you feeling?
so far, so good. So
That's
far, fine.
great.
So
That's great.
yeah.
Awesome. So when it comes to puppets like Bear and the Snuffleupagus relatives and Magellan, for the most part, you're basically inside of this thing. And for characters
Yes.
like the snobbish grocery store clerk and Lionel, you basically have it like you're not inside of it. It's just you're holding it above you. Do you
Right.
prefer that kind of puppetry, or do you prefer body puppetry?
I like body puppetry. It's
Okay.
like I like that because then you can move around and walk around, which was great about Bear. He could actually walk around. When Bear was on Hollywood Squares, um, normally when the Muppets were on, they had to be preset because they couldn't walk out. They'd be preset in the square, so they would have a screen up. And when the stars are introduced to the audience, that's when they pulled the screen away. And that's when you would see preset Elmo or preset Kermit or preset Big Bird. But Bear could actually, because of my setup, I had at that time I had two monitors. One was the monitor where I could see the feed that you would see at home. And then I had a second monitor because for doing appearances, there was a camera in Bear's left eye. So I could actually see. So it was kind of like kind of like this vision, and I could actually see where I was going and who I was talking to. So this way, Bear was able to, when they introduced the celebrities would come out, take a bow, and then go to their square. Bear is the only Muppet who could actually walk out, take his bow, and then go sit down in the square. And it was always like one of the lower squares.
Nice. I actually have a little Bear in the Big Blue house memory from my childhood, besides watching all of the VHS tapes. Do you mind if I share it?
Sure.
When I was, I think maybe 1, 2, or 3, I was really little at the time, and I went for a walk around the suburb that I used to live in, Waverly, with my mom, and it was close to evening. And so the sky was still a little bit bright, but the moon was out, which really confused me because,
Right.
anything I watched on TV showed the moon was always out when it's dark. I need to lay off
Right.
TV shows. But I remember even asking my mom, where's the sun? And my mom told me the sun is with Bear.
There you go.
So,
Yeah, it was always amazing, like how Bear could actually like talk to these characters, especially with everybody at night. Like, isn't everybody else hearing what Luna's saying to Bear since she's talking to him? And also Bear being able to look at the sun without any glasses whatsoever. But since it's a talking bear with a mortgage, you just kind of let that go. You don't think about it too much.
Right. So another little body puppetry thing that you did was with another friend of mine and another past guest on the show, Matt Hill.
Yes.
And speaking of Matt Hill, I got in touch with
who's
Matt.
Canadian.
Yes, a fellow Canadian. And I actually got in touch with Matt when I landed you as a guest on the show. And I'll read you the message that he sent me. I sent him a message and I said, "Hey, Matt, I've got some exciting news that you might like to hear. Noel McNeil is going to be joining me on Nostalgia Talk next week." And he wrote back, "Woot woot and cowabunga on that action. Say a huge aloha to my turtle bro, Noel." And there's a turtle emoji right here. And so for those of you who missed episode number 7 with Matt Hill, basically they worked in one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles films. Matt was number 3, right? Yeah. Matt was inside the body of Raphael, and he ended up doing Raphael's voice in a series. And Noel, you did the face. Did you find that? Did you?
Yeah,
find
it was an animatronic face. Yeah, it was like So we were off camera. It was myself, Rick Lyon, Gordon Robinson, and Jim Martin, and we were the puppeteers for the turtles. And so my turtle was Raphael, and I lucked out getting Matt as my actor inside Raph. We went off and like talked about like Raph's attitude and like what he would be thinking, even in the scene, like his body language and his expression to go with it. So it was like perfect. Like I love Matt, and it was interesting because Matt and the other performers, the other actors, they had to wear the suits and then they had to put the head on, and the head, it's not a light head. And when you turn everything on, in order to make the mouths move and the eyes blink and all that, there are gears. And so there's this grinding going on. And so Matt would have like an earpiece so he could hear me and I could hear him. And then there was another like earpiece microphone so that he could also hear like instructions. And so I would do the voice of Raph, and then it got dubbed over in California. And so it was interesting. So before like each scene, we would talk through like what we wanted Raph to like look like. And especially there's the scene with Raphael talking to the kid. And we really wanted this to be this really like touching scene. And it worked out great. It's actually currently right now, the 3rd movie's on HBO Max. Like all 3 movies are on HBO Max. And number 3 just premiered on HBO Max. And so it's fun. We shot it in Oregon. So feudal Japan, because they go back in time Japan. So feudal Japan, believe it or not, looks a lot like Northwest Oregon, just outside of Portland.
Wow.
And we shot in the city of Astoria, Oregon,
where the Goonies is set.
Yes. So we shot it there. So yeah, it was fun. We was out there for like about 3 months, did some nighttime shoots up in the mountains, which was beautiful.
Awesome. So last question I have before we wrap up. So you got to do writing and directing for Bear in the Big Blue House and writing for The Puzzle Place and The Magic School Bus. The Magic School Bus is the big one I want to talk about because that's one that me and a lot of my friends used to watch. I went to an after-school program when I was 12. Yes, when I was 11 or 12, I was at an after-school program. I was the oldest one there. So I no offense to the people working there, but I did feel kind
That's
of
fine.
awkward. I felt kind of awkward being, like a almost teenager pretty well among these young kids. And well, I mean, I watch kids at programming, it doesn't
Yeah.
bother me. It's what I want to do for a career. And I remember they were really into the Magic School Bus. We watched a lot of that for like science when I was in school. So when you were writing for the Magic School Bus, were there like meetings with staff on what the episodes were going to be about, like what the subject was going to be?
Yeah, I wrote for one season, and it was great because they would have like the topics, and the science team would come in first and do demonstration and experiments on the topic. And then after they left, that's when if a writer felt like they could handle it, then they would do it. And they were fun. It was really fun, like with the science team, because it was almost like a little show, and these little experiments that you could do with a kid, but they were doing it with us. So it was wonderful. So I decided to do. I did two. I did one where it's like the life cycle of a star, and the other
Oh
one was
yeah.
and the other one was animals, wildlife in the city. And so
Oh
those
wow.
were those were my two. The star episode, where they buy a star for their friend. Um, they try to buy it on the home like shopping network kind of equivalent. And there's this con man who's selling stars, and his name is Horace Scope. And it was they got uh, Dabney Coleman. I know Dabney Coleman. Yeah, Dabney Coleman to do the voice. And Dabney was the evil boss in 9 to 5 that Lily Tomlin, who was Miss Frizzle, co-starred with it. So it was nice, like sort of reuniting them, like vocally again. And so yeah, and the other one was how how wild animals survive in the city. So Magic School Bus was great. It was a fun experience.
You just mentioned Lily Tomlin, and that all reminds me of when she was on the Sesame Street New Year's Eve special. Did you get to work with her then?
Yeah, it's like her segments again were separate from ours. So,
Right.
but I was in like more of the crowd scene. So we were doing all the stuff. That was back when there was Around the Corner, which no
Oh yeah.
longer exists.
Right.
In time for the 25th anniversary, they wanted to expand the street. And so there's this other street around the corner from Big Bird's Nest. I had a park and Ruth Buzzy's thrift shop and a dance studio and the Furry Arms Hotel and Hoots' Birdland Jazz Club. And it lasted about 3 seasons
5.
until like so many letters came in from parents just saying like, who are these characters? Like where are the characters I grew up with? Where's Ernie? Where's Bird? Where's Big Bird? And so that's when they just like got rid of it.
Mm.
And they just like, and it's as if it never existed. There's no reference. None of the characters came over back to the normal Sesame. It's just like it was like a dream.
Mm. I was watching the episode today where they went around the corner to the new playground around the. Were you
Yeah.
in that one?
I was there. Yeah, I was thinking it was one of those Muppets in the back. Yeah, I was there for that one. The big. Yeah, that's when we moved from the studio on 55th Street and 9th Avenue in New York to Kaufman Astoria to the downstairs studio because it was big enough to accommodate the new set.
Hmm. Nice. And now comes my least favorite part of the show, where it's time to wrap up. Noel, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, this was really fun. We hope you liked it too. Thanks for having me on. During the lockdown, I got to be kind of a podcaster. So if you want to hear stories in a rather bearish voice, you could go to Noel's Book Nook, which is on
Ah.
Spotify and Apple and Google Podcasts. So if you want to continue hearing this voice, read
Uh,
from public domain stories, you could do that.
Awesome. Well, to the listeners, stay tuned for Saturday, March 27th. I got a new Nostalgia Talk bonus video coming out. I haven't shot that yet, but I'm going to. And
Make promises you can't keep.
I'm so uncommitted. Now, normally to end the show, I would say peace out. But today, as a special treat, Noel, would you like to help me sing a goodbye song?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you want to be the bear or the moon?
I'll be the James.
Okay.
Shall we begin?
Hey, this was
Okay.
Hey, this was really fun.
We hoped you liked it too.
Seems like we've just begun.
When suddenly
we're
through.
through.
Goodbye,
Goodbye.
good friends, goodbye.
'Cause now it's time to go. But hey, I say, well, that's okay.
'Cause we'll see you very soon, I know.
Very soon, I know.
Goodbye,
Goodbye, good friends, goodbye. And tomorrow,
next week,
just like today.
The James, the bear, big
blue house will be waiting for you to come and play.
To come
and play. To come and play. Bye now.